All right, here's slide 10 where we left off from video number 1 for chapter notes number 2. All right, so this image contains a lot of information, and this itself is a model also. So a scientist created a model using some pretty good graphics, and it shows from cell to proteins. There's some written content in here to share and increase your information. It shows different sections of genes and what they make, which are different versions of protein. So one version made this protein, one section made this protein, one portion of DNA made this protein, portion of the DNA later made this one. It's recognizing that each of these sections is a gene. It recognizes this DNA can be coiled up into the form of chromosomes that can be found in cells. Based on all this information, write a summary in your own words of what you think is important from this model. A summary of what you think the scientist was communicating or what the slide is about. All right, next task is in your notebook to create a brainstorm web that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 opportunities to discuss what you think protein is or what you think protein does. If you were working with someone else, you could also record their name and their ideas about what you think protein is or does. But if you're at home working solo, you got to try your best to do it on your own. 7 things that you think protein is or does. And it says no points for energy. So if all you talk about is protein being food, or it's good for energy and food, then you're missing kind of the point, because we're learning about protein in the body isn't just the type of protein that you can eat for dinner. There's much more to protein, right? It's about thinking about what protein is in our bodies as far as the protein polymers or these massive molecules in the body that have roles, right? And what they do or what it's made of as best as you can. So think about when you hear the word protein, what do you think they are or do? Here's some examples made by yours truly. Skip some of these slides, right? You just keep moving. Some of these slides are just for my help, but the next slide I'd like you to look at is this one. And again, you don't always have to write the definitions, but you should at least write what the title is, creating the body, one protein at a time, or you should identify the vocabulary used in that slide. And in this case, it's talking about a term called transcribed and RNA. So it says, DNA is copied or transcribed into another chemical chain similar to DNA. This new chemical polymer chain is called RNA. So DNA is transcribed to RNA. And we've seen that happen before when we watched the PhET simulation. All right, so here's transcription. So transcription is when RNA polymerase bonds to a gene. You can see it does a structural change, but the RNA polymerase makes mRNA from the DNA. Again, the RNA polymerase manages to kind of, and just study the behavior it does to the DNA. Just watch the DNA as it does it. The behavior of the DNA and the RNA polymerase. And it produces the mRNA from it. So it takes DNA code and turns it into a new code or polymer called RNA. If you haven't already guessed, now proteins do work in the body. And as you can see, RNA polymerase has a job. So chances are RNA polymerase has some relationship to being a protein. We know that proteins require energy to do work. We know proteins in the body do work. And watch it do its work. And watch that it changes shape. Proteins can change their shape to do work. And watch it change its shape. Again, this process is transcription. This RNA polymerase, its job is to help produce DNA into an RNA message. So it's transcribing. Notice it says transcribed region right here. All right, so with this slide, we want to interpret this image. So this is a model that was a visual model to kind of demonstrate how RNA polymerase does its job, right? So your job is, it says, interpret image to hypothesize how DNA is transcribed into RNA. So look at this. This is where it's most important to visually look. So describe how the shape of DNA changes And also, just interpret, what is the RNA polymerase doing, and what do you see it doing? So make sense of this image right here and how it represents transcription. And that's the task for that page. You can skip this slide, and skip this slide, skip this one, and here's another slide for transcription. You can see it's the same. I just cut that piece out of there, the most important piece for transcription. But it says transcription in the nucleus is enzymes make an RNA copy. Enzymes are a type of protein like RNA polymerase of a portion of a DNA strand. So RNA polymerase is an enzyme or protein that helps do work in the body. It says observe image and draw model of the enzyme. So it wants you to draw the RNA polymerase. It says 2, enzymes support chemical reactions. It says enzymes support chemical reactions. It says study, interpret, hypothesize what chemical reaction the enzyme RNA polymerase performs. So if a chemical reaction happens, chemical bonds are formed. Looking at what RNA polymerase does and seeing this visually, how could chemical bonds being formed when RNA polymerase does its job? So you got to look at the picture. RNA polymerase, what does it do, right? It zooms into the DNA, and then it starts doing its job. What is its job? Well, it's constructing this. How could it be involved in making chemical bonds or in this process, right? And that would be explaining how it can form a chemical reaction and help it occur, right? So this is the chemical reaction that's occurring, but let's explain this process using certain words like chemical bond, nucleotide, and polymer. And don't forget, polymer is a repeating molecular structure. And DNA is an example of a polymer, right? Because it's the nucleotides here are molecules themselves bonded together in a repeating structure. So DNA is a polymer. Question is, would you say RNA is a polymer? You decide. Here we go. Here's the difference between RNA and DNA. So it says examine section 1. Section 1 is highlighted in pink. So this is section 1 as well as this. So section 1 is about the nucleotides that make DNA and the nucleotides that make RNA. It says examine section 1 and determine how RNA is different from DNA. So what's different with the nucleotides of RNA when you compare them to DNA? Are there any differences? Number 2 is look at section 2, which is the overall polymer, DNA polymer and RNA polymer, and identify any potential differences you see visually when comparing the structure of the DNA polymer to the RNA polymer. And then finally, number 3 is how are they similar? So in what ways are RNA and DNA similar? All right, we have our next slide here. And as always, there's videos here to help support what we're learning about, so never forget to just click on these links, right? Just like you can see the hand here. If I clicked on it, it would take me straight to the YouTube video, and I even identify the times that you can look at to better understand and get the most out of the video, save you time. It says there are 3 forms of RNA that help build a protein using DNA instructions. The first form is messenger RNA. That's what we learned about. It says watch the videos. Once RNA is copied, where does it go? So if you watch the video at 4.4 minutes, you'll see that once RNA is produced, it goes somewhere within the cell. And the question is why. So watch the video to determine why. And then it says look at the image. You have DNA, A, T, C, and G nucleotides, same as here, A, T, C, G. It says RNA is producing A, U, C, and G. So there's an A here, a U, a C, and a G, right? Which DNA nucleotides bond to each RNA nucleotide? So look at the picture to figure out. The A nucleotide bonds to the, you can see it's bonding to a U nucleotide as the RNA is forming, the mRNA. Look at T. Which nucleotide in the RNA does it connect to? The C codes for which nucleotide here, right? There you go. Just follow along and document it. And that's the end of chapter 11, notes number 2. All right.